This is a video that tells you how to use Google Hangout on Air to create training videos. I'm going to cover 6 points: assumptions, starting Google Hangout on Air, how you don't have to have an audience, the start page, the real start, and it's still not started. First of all, assumptions. We assume that you've actually participated in a Google Hangout on Air to do this. It's also assumed that you have a Google account and you also have a Google Plus account, which you would get when you've got a Google account, so that you have actually used Google Hangout. It's also assumed that you have a YouTube account, which happens when you try to do a Google Hangout on Air. Alright, assuming those assumptions, how do we actually go to starting a Google Hangout on Air? How do we actually start one? Alright, first thing you've got to do is start up. Whoops, I'm in the wrong screen. What you've got to do is start Google. Alright, from Google, the Google main page, if you go to the Google Hangout, if you've already got a Google Hangout, it'll have plus in your name there. So if you do that, it'll come up with a screen that looks something like this. Don't worry about what's on this part of it, this is just what's on for me. More important part is you need to look at the Google Plus and this menu on the left hand side. So on the left hand side, if we click on Home and then go down to Hangouts. Okay, when you do that it says it's loading. Now initially you won't see a lot because what actually happens is it's further down the screen. You've got to scroll down the screen and there's a thing called Start a Hangout on Air. Start a Hangout on Air. You have to click on that. When you do that, once again it starts, and by the way it may not be all the way at the beginning of the screen, you have to scroll down a little bit. First thing you've got to do is actually give it a name. So we'll say showing how to use Hangouts to do training. Okay, and if I get the spelling right. Alright, okay, you can then also tell people what it's about. And by the way, you have to have that title. You can't bypass having the title. If you don't, you won't be able to go further on. You can tell what it's about. It's not necessary to do that. Obviously, you need to tell it that you want to start the Hangout now. Alright, okay, just to go back, right, you'll notice the next thing I'm going to do is show you how you don't have to have an audience. If you go to the screen, you'll see it actually asking you, right, who do you want to be in this Hangout on Air? And actually usually says you want family and the public. Well, you can leave that there if you want to, but I don't do that. I take that out completely. And I usually just not have an audience by putting in my own email address. So that's my own email address. Once you've done that, right, you can then go down and tell it to actually share. So unless you've filled in that information, said now, and got at least one name there, it won't allow you to share it. So I'm actually going to share. You click on the share button and then it comes up. That goes to the next stage, which is, it says it's loading. When it's loading, it comes to what's called this screen here, which I call the start screen. So this is where we're at, the start page, well not the start screen, the start page. So that's where we're coming to, this particular start page. Alright, this particular page is designed so that when you're in the Google Hangout in Air, you can actually see what's being recorded. Talk about that later on. The trailer and the Q&A and other options that you have available, we're not going to talk about that at this particular stage. But at this point, you'd simply click on Start. So if I click on Start, it opens up a completely new window in your browser, and you should see yourself as I have there. Alright. Once again, it asks, because we haven't put any guests, if you want to invite any more guests. So rather than doing that, I'll just skip that. I could click on invite. I'm going to just skip that. You could if you want to, but in this particular case for training, you don't have to have anybody there. So I'm going to skip that particular part. So that's skipped. And you'll see there's a little screen there with me in it. All right, and there's a bigger screen with me in it. It goes through and buffers up. And you'll see at this particular point in time that we are off air. In other words, it's not a Google Hangout on air, but other people will be able to see you if necessary. and also it's buffering up. This is a little bit slow. We'll see what happens. And it's actually showing there the title you get to show how to use Hangouts on air. To actually start the recording and what's going to be used in the training, you have to click on Start Broadcast. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do that now, I'm going to do that in another video, and that'll be linked to this particular video. So you click on Start Broadcast, and then you'll be able to use some of these things on the left hand side, which I'll explain in a completely different video. So that's it for the moment. Okay, bye.